is Saturday, October 27th. It's 11:10 a.m. and this is the Steam Witness Forum. I'm joined today by Yabamat, Real Wolf, Some Guy, Upheaver, and Andrarchy should be on here momentarily. I think they're just doing a quick mic check. The general plan is we're going to go sort of talk about what some of the best news on the platform is. I do like to start with something upbeat. I want to talk about what some of our biggest concerns are, and I think we as a community have to go kind of discuss, how do we meet the challenges that we're facing and going up against. Some of the things that I expect that we'll touch on, curation has sort of been a big thing. 20.6 has just gone live, so there are some witness changes. It seems like a couple bug tweaks and trying to get this thing kind of ready for that. What else are we doing? Curation, we got 20.6, and I don't know. We're gonna see what else the audience is interested in doing and where we want to go with this. I normally start these things off with Andrarchy, but it seems like he's having a little bit of audio issues. So why don't we start by going from top down? So Some Guy, you want to kick us off. Let's just do like a quick introduction, tell people who you are, what you're working on, and just a little bit about who you are, kind of 1 or 2 minutes. You there, Some Guy?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. I'm Some Guy 123. I think I'm currently rank 8, but it changes every day. I'm the developer of AnonSteem, the service that lets people create accounts without having to go through Steemit. I also the CEO of Privex. That's a server hosting company that's currently targeted at the Steam market. And I also developed a lot of tools for witnesses, such as Steem in a Box and SteamFeed.js, which is a price feed system.
Rock on. Thanks for being here, Some Guy. I'm Aggroed. I am Witness 6 on the Steem blockchain. I kind of got a foothold here because I founded the Peace, Abundance, and Liberty network that we are all in, this Discord channel. As part of that, there's a subsection which is called the Minnow Support Project, which is a team of public witnesses and moderators that try to help new members get a foothold on the platform. I then created msp-waves, or founded msp-waves, which is a broadcast system that we're listening to. And then most recently, and maybe most famously, I'm working on Steem Monsters, and we've launched a digital trading card game that's all blockchain based, where you can trade your cards and play. And so far we've had over 100,000 games played. That's my quick background. Real Wolf.
Yeah, hello. I'm the Real Wolf. I'm currently rank 30, so I'm a backup witness. But I've been a witness for I think over 8 months now, and I've been working on multiple projects. This went over something called the Steem Chat Wallet, which is an app where people can send transfers. Then I've built some tools for witnesses in a group which is called Witness Essentials. Then I built another tool for witnesses. I've built smartsteam.com, and most recently I've developed with Upheaver Steem Anchor, which is a service to tether Steem on the Stellar blockchain, which is then enabled to be traded on Stellar, which is Stellar has a decentralized exchange, so people can trade there for free. With no trading fees. And this is my site here, if you want to check out the projects. Yeah, that's me.
Great. Upheaver, you are muted. It's not by me. You have muted yourself. There you go. Just give us a quick update or introduction on yourself, Upheaver.
Hey, I'm Upheaver, and I'm currently witness number 145, I think, so not in the top 100. I recently started my witness, so I'm quite new. as the Real Wolf has said, we have a little cooperation going, and I'm a software developer by trade, and currently working on several projects for Steem Blockchain, one of which we recently launched, and which is the Steem Anchor, and we have several other projects upcoming very soon. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, glad to have you. It's good to rotate in some of the backup witnesses. I try to do that just like the Steem blockchain does. Give some people that aren't in the top 20 a chance to speak and be heard and share what they're working on. Matt, you want to give us a quick introduction?
Sure. Yeah. Hey guys. I'm Yabat Matt, Yabba P Matt, whatever. You can just call me Matt. So I work with Agrode primarily on Steem Monsters right now, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. But I look at Steem Monsters as not really my like passion, something I wanted to do for a long time. But I also keep like kind of my witness projects sort of separate from that. So the recent project that I launched also with the help of Agrode and StudKev was the Steem Keychain browser extension. And I just think that that's just a super important kind of piece of the puzzle for, integrating apps into the Steem platform. I mean, it's something that many crypto users are familiar with via MetaMask for Ethereum. And it's, in my opinion, a more secure way to interact with apps without having to put your keys into web pages. So that's my most recent project, which there's still a lot of work to be done on, just to help, grow the Steem ecosystem of apps and have them be secure and easy to use for everybody.
Andrarchy, is your mic now working?
Yes, I believe it is.
Hallelujah. Well, Andrarchy, it's wonderful to have you on the show. So we are joined by a variety of the witnesses. We're also joined by Andrarchy. Andrarchy is the director of content at Steemit Inc. He is a vocal Steemian, and it's fantastic because it helps give us some insight into what's going on at Steemit. Steemit for a long time has been criticized for being quiet and a little insular in terms of trying to get the message out, and those things have rapidly changed since Andrarchy has been there, and it seems like he's done a great push to help get them to be a little bit more open, transparent, communicative about what Steemit's working on. Andrarchy, thank you for doing that. I think it's great for the community. I think there's a lot of people that are very interested in what you guys are working on, and maybe you can share some of that live on air today. What's going on?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for the kind words. It certainly hasn't been as rapid as a lot of us would have liked. I've actually been on the team for kind of a long time now. When you look back at it, I've actually been there for like 2 years. But the community liaison and as I became content director, things started to gradually improve, and as of late, I think you guys have noticed like a serious ramp up. And it's not necessarily it's not like anybody was really fighting it. It's just that when you're a young organization that's very engineering heavy and you just got a lot on your plate, things like communications just can a lot of things, not just communications, but a lot of small things the wayside as you try to focus as much of your attention on all the mission critical stuff. I think one of the insights that I've gotten, I've always been in technology and startup culture and disruptive technologies and how it works from an organizational perspective. And one of the many things I've learned from being inside the organization is that like when you're building something that's truly innovative, and that's not to pat ourselves on the back, it's just a fact that all of your tools as well. And maybe this is something engineers, people who are more technically experienced knew already, But when you're building something really new, whether people even like it or not, if it's really new, the real hard part isn't building what you're building, it's building the tools that you can use to build what you want to build. And that's the real hard part. It's the stuff nobody sees, and very often anything else is not going to be prioritized. And so it was a matter of being on the team long enough to understand what we're really working on, what we're really building. It's a matter of the team understanding for itself what it's building, what it's trying to do, what it needs to do, and then everybody coming together to work together to communicate that effectively. It's a lot harder than I would have imagined. It's not even as easy as just having a will. It's getting all the pieces in place. And I was just in Austin this week, and we finally have like a really great communications team. We've got a head of communications. We've got a head of social media. I'm sure a lot of people have noticed our increased activity on Twitter and other social channels. She's been doing a great job. Hopefully we're going to release some video on that. We've got a great head of public relations and events. So she's helping. She's really wearing multiple hats. Everybody's doing a lot of things. And all of these pieces have just come into place.
So you talked about building the tools to view the tool to do the tooling thing. Like where do you think you are in that process? Is Hard Fork 20 sort of the last step? Is that SMTs is sort of the last step? Are we nowhere close to the last step? I mean, what percent done do you think Steem as a blockchain is? Like what are tools that are missing that either Steemit's working on or that we need the Steem ecosystem to build to help us really utilize this thing to the best of our ability?
That's a really great question. I mean, I think there's no farther along than we've ever been. I think we've got a lot of the pieces in place that will enable us all to the next level. I think it's going to be time before where we got, the majority. So, for example, to get specific, the testnet, I feel like, is a great example of a tool, right? Like, it happened. We always knew that we wanted a testnet. It was always on the list of things we need, but it took a while to get there. And we put one out in preparation of HF20. So it's like, great, we've got the tool. We've got the tool that's going to enable us to test it. And then HF20 comes out, and we realize it needs way more stuff in it. We built.
Hey, Andrarchy, I hate to cut you off, but you are cutting in and out quite a bit. Do you have other parts? Do you have like other browser tabs open or something that you could cut off?
Yeah. 1 sec. I'm just.
Yeah, let's shrink down your other stuff. I don't know what you're downloading in the background, but it's messing with your audio.
I'm a notorious hoarder, so it's just Google Docs and Steemit.com posts. Is that any better?
Yeah, we're gonna find out. Okay, so the testnet is one of the tools that you built that you got to HF20 and said, oh wow, this is a great tool, but it still needs quite a bit more, and then hopefully you can go from there.
Absolutely. So it's like, so you build the tool and then it turns out that it's a toolbox too, and that it was 90% empty, and so now Donovan's team, Relativity Boy, Inertia, a few other people have been working their butts off since our Hard Fork 20 to dramatically improve testnet, and it's getting way better. And leading up to the next hard fork, I think we're going to have a lot more tools in the toolbox. Resource credits are one piece of that puzzle. I mean, I think where we're at now is we're prepared to scale to the next order of magnitude. So maybe that's 10 million accounts. But this isn't this isn't a hard science. You know, we might get to 5 million accounts and see a million things that need changing. You know, scaling it's not a linear, none of these are linear dynamics that we're dealing with. So I think that, and the real answer, I think, goes back to what we're all doing right now in terms of communication between parties within the ecosystem, and going towards that Steem governance post that we released, looking at all of the great work that so many witnesses are doing as far as broadcasting their standards, what they're looking to accomplish, what they want to do in Hard Fork 20. But in these communications that are going to happen now, that are already happening now, there are going to be arguments and there are going to be disagreements, and people think that that's bad, but that's good. To have these open and frank discussions, which you have certainly done more than anyone else as far as promoting these discussions and promoting forums where these discussions can happen. And we need to decide what we want to build, how we want to build it, and come to a consensus on how we're going to do that. I think that's more important than any of these other questions. We're not going to be a mature ecosystem for 10 to 20 years. And to have exponential growth up until that time. Two different things, you know.
So I'm actually worried about a little bit of this. Let me go put in the most recent stat by Penguin Pablo. So I am like a notorious optimist. I tend to have an attitude that everything will work out, things will get better. But this chart is actually sort of alarming. So what we're looking at there in chat is Penguin Pablo has been putting together stat reports, and we can see that the number of posts, including comments, back in April was about 200,000, and now we're down to something like 70,000. So now I recognize that we're in a bear market, and so I would expect some of this, and we see a small chop because the number of because Hard Fork 20 kind of killed some spam, but what I'm interested in is like what can we do to sort of reverse that trend as a ecosystem that isn't simply sit back and wait for the bear market to end. You know, how do we get more users? How do we get more people here? Because the follow-up is, you know, hey, we're set to scale, and yet the number of people that are using us are still kind of a little. We're not growing such that like, hey, we really are pushing the boundaries of our scale. What do you think is going to tip the balance so that we can actually start growing as a platform again and have more people here and those kinds of pieces?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a complicated answer, and I'll do my best to kind of. People are making a point that price probably has relevance there. I think that's true. However, I think I can argue on Agrode's behalf on that you know our growth really shouldn't be determined by price. I think it is. I think that's the point that the people in the comments are making is that post growth is definitely related to price. Price goes up, interest goes up. Where I fall on this is it kind of answers both questions, which is that growing because we have interfaces, this gamification mechanism that delivers delightful experiences to users. And we don't really have that yet. I think with resource credits, we important pieces to that puzzle. With resource credits, we added very important calculations to the blockchain that will enable developers to render user interfaces that will enable users to have a much more pleasant experience on Steam applications. Now, that being said, there's inevitably going to be a time lag between when those features get added to the base protocol and when can implement them on their user interfaces, and then when those user interfaces can actually get good. And all that stuff takes time.
And also attracting them. I mean, Matt and I were pretty dedicated to getting Steam Monsters up and running because we're both witnesses. We both believe in this platform. And we were already sort of like stake-weighted, invested partners with the Steam ecosystem and community. But I think we have a challenge too of, okay, now we have some great underlying tools and features that can help and support growth. Now, how do we actually turn that into the actual growth? It's not just we can support this, but some of this feels like people development and human development, and it's like this is some of the places where I think Steemit as a company sometimes gets stuck. Of like, hey, we need to go reach out to community to get more apps developed. And what are ways that this community can help them? What are ways that Steemit can help them? The first part is absolutely let's go build the fundamental core code to make it a better experience. And then the next step is how do we get people, humans, to start developing on that? And so, what is Steemit thinking? Is this on the radar? How do you guys talk about? All right, we've built some pretty awesome stuff for the blockchain developers. Now, how do we get them here? What's the answer to that at the water cooler or the plans, or how does that fit into the discussion?
And that's a great question. We've been doing a lot of work the last couple of months how to pitch Steem and how to advocate for Steem as a protocol, and much a work in progress. We're that it is part of our purview for the blockchain and for the great apps that are on it, apps like Steem Monsters and Steem Press and so I think we're still getting our sea legs there and figuring out how we can best do that. And I think that that'll be part of this process. There is also, we are, as I'm sure many of the people in here know, Ed is developing a new interface that will be built. There's only so much I can discuss about that, but
and you've cut out a little, and you've been cutting in and out. So it sounds like you just mentioned Destiny, which is a new interface that the Steemit company has been developing. He's being redacted. The globalists don't want you to talk about Destiny, Andrarchy.
Well, so yeah, there's only so much I could say here. Technically, it's being worked on by another company being run by Ned, and it is trying to do is showcase Steem in a new way, in a way that nobody else is, in a way that none of the existing app developers are now. And that's not, it's precisely the opposite. I think that's where, and I can't speak for Ned here, but I think that's where he sees his role in this, is as the person who knows the most about the protocol, as one of the founders of it, as the person who's been involved the longest, he can see where the gaps are in the ecosystem. And if he doesn't see anything coming down the pipeline that is going to sufficiently advertise just what this thing's capable of doing, he's going to do that. And what he did with Steemit.com when they launched Steemit.com is he did that. He launched this interface that really led the way in the ecosystem for 2 years as far as what you can do on this blockchain. But at the same time, apps that have been built on Steem have been very oriented .com. And so, in my opinion, what it seems like he's doing with Destiny is figuring out what else we can build to give that other perspective to demonstrate this blockchain can do, or what this blockchain can do now that it's been upgraded. And with the primary objective of how can we onboard the masses onto this blockchain. So that's how we're working on a communication side. We're figuring out how we can advocate for the blockchain and how we can highlight all of the great projects that are already built on it and that are coming online every day. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, Ned is working on a separate interface that is going to show it in a very tangible way that people can touch and use. Similar to how Steemit.com worked at the beginning, but new and different and not, not on, all of the baggage that comes along with Steemit.com.
Do you have sense of timeline? Is this something that happens in 2018, 2019, 2020? I know you guys hate giving dates at all, but could you at least give us a year in which you think it is likely to hit?
Well, no, but I could tell you that it's not long.
That sounds similar to soon.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'm going to be vaguer than that. But I will say, I think more importantly, what I can say is that with respect to timelines, we are going to deliver more of them going forward. We are not averse to timelines. We've just been very bad at it in the past. But, first of all, the majority of our focus right now is SMTs. And I do think, personally, I do believe, and I think as an organization, we do believe that SMTs are an important tool for the scaling problem. And with respect to those numbers that you posted before, which we didn't discuss the potential impact that resource credits might be having on that, though the trend was before that. SMTs are part of the solution to that problem, enabling smaller communities to incentivize more niche engagement. That's our primary focus. We've given firm deadlines on that. We're publishing SMT burn-up posts we're trying to do a weekly basis. That's what we're shooting for. So you'll be able to track progress there. I can't say anything more now, but you can expect to see more timelines coming soon. I just want to make that promise that while we have been reluctant to give timelines in the past, as our engineering department has grown, as we've acquired more skilled isn't the right word, experienced project management people. Our project management officer, Jim Clenny, is awesome. He's been at Google. He's just doing a great job organizing all the efforts. So, and as we've been, practicing our pointing the stories and developing the stories and keeping track of the engineers' abilities to meet their projections, we've gotten more confident with our timelines, and now we feel much more comfortable releasing deadlines. like we did with with SMTs. And so we'll be doing that more. So unfortunately, while I can't give you any timelines with respect to those things, hopefully I will be able to soon, because we are going to be releasing more timelines, because it's an important, and I think that's because it's an important element of transparency. We've been really committed to doing a lot more ever since Hard Fork 20. I mean, we've always wanted to do it, but I think Hard Fork 20 really drove home the need to communicate more and be more transparent, because we're all in this together, and we can't do everything top down. And you know, we've been as much at fault as anyone. I don't think talk about fault. We're all learning as we go. This is a decentralized organization. You know, we're all figuring out our roles, how we could do it, and we're maturing. I think, like, with the question of scaling, like I've been playing with the idea in my head of thinking about this all as just a maturation process. You know, like, this is a 2.5-year-old little baby thing. We all come from this diverse background, different companies, different organizations, different political beliefs, and we're figuring out how to work together as a community. And there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be phases of growth and phases of contraction, and of course they're going to coincide with economic growth and economic contraction. And it's just going to be about how we get through this together. It's never going to be smooth. I mean, I can promise you all that. Like, the moment it gets smooth, like, that's leading up to 2008. That's when people were saying, you know, the end of history. The U.S. economy is going to continue to grow at a rate of 1%. I don't want to grow at a rate of 1%. I want to grow at a rate of 10, 20% for 10 years with negative 5% growth one year and positive 15% growth the next year. And, you know, just that's a type of volatile, rapid growth you experience in a disruptive technology. Sorry for the ramble. I just find this stuff so interesting and exciting.
Well, so I can understand wanting to grow at different paces. I guess the one thought I have on the burn up posts is they are a great lens with which to go understand what you are doing. They let us view the fishbowl. They let us see the fish and what you guys are doing in there. But they don't quite break the fourth wall. I mean, I think that there's one more step, and this is sort of the dream, I think, with working in the crypto space and the decentralize everything mentality, is that there's one sort of additional layer that you could go down. So I'm not, this is more of like planting a seed. Here's my inception moment where it is a phenomenal step to go from almost no communication to fairly steady communication to now fairly steady communication about the product development roadmap, which I think in particular has been lacking since the HF or the, what was this, maybe 2017 roadmap. It's been sort of missing. I think the one next step where I hope that you guys go from keep doing what you're doing, which is really reporting on what you're doing to the community, is the next iteration is sort of involving that community. So here's hoping that some of that actually enters into the language and the process that you guys use to, not just inform us, but involve us.
Absolutely, and we have stuff in development for that. This is just the beginning. What we're doing now is I promise just the beginning. There's more coming.
Well, that's promising. I mean, I remember kind of poking the bear a little bit a while back, being like, we want things sooner, faster, quicker, and I remember saying I'm going to eat those words. As I have launched my own app, and Matt is an incredible developer, and we have put out so many updates in such a short amount of time, and yet even still, it's still, you guys don't do this, you don't do that, and Matt is actually one of the most like self-reflective developers of like, yes, we don't do this, we don't do that, we're trying to build this, and it's like, all right, I really get. I get the sort of You guys have a platform that's 1,000 times bigger than what we're doing. I can understand the number of voices that are saying, "Give me more, give me more." So I can appreciate that, and hearing, but also from the side of being on the outside of the fishbowl, just hearing you guys say, "This is the beginning. This isn't the end. We are starting to ramp up the communication. Here is what you can see now, and we'll do more in the future." Like even just that level of commitment, where it's not even like super well defined, seems to be music to my ears. To be like, okay, well, it sounds like Steemit's actually starting to get that the community wants more communication, more insight, and I think largely more involvement. And that's exciting to me to hear you say that you guys are kind of going down that road some.
Yeah, absolutely. And be super excited about the things you see in the very, very not too distant future. A lot of, I think, by the way, for anybody listening, I'm thinking that on a Steam Fest 3, I will be speaking there, and I'm thinking that I make my talk about your Steam app to investors. And so if you're interested in that, first of all, leave me feedback, or if you'd rather I talk about something else, let me know. But the reason I bring this up is because, being inside Steemit, I feel like we got a lot of insights that we can share with other Steam app developers. And so now I'm talking with Agrode specifically. But one of the things we've learned is that, okay, so you want to communicate with your users. There are a lot of technical difficulties with doing that. Just writing posts, like, okay, if you've got Agrode and Matt, they're brilliant guys, they're great writers, that's incredibly rare. So you guys can write and you can inform people that way. But as the organization grows, as demand for your product grows, you're going to start facing the problem of, do I spend my time writing, or do I spend my time solving the problems our users want? Which creates a technical problem. And so then you start looking for writers, and then it's hard finding the writers. And say you want to streams. I mean, again, like Agrode, you've got this experience running all this stuff. But, say you want to do live streams. Well, now you've got to get cameras, and you got to, you got to get somebody who's going to operate the equipment. And say you get to a certain size, well, now you want all that video content to be of sufficiently high quality. And so you got to get good cameras, and you got to get a good system in place, and you got to commit to doing them at regular intervals. And so there are all these just technical problems that you just don't think about when you're starting a business, and when you're starting thinking about how you're going to communicate, and will is just one part. And for us, I just in the interest of transparency, it has been incredibly difficult for us to get the equipment and the personnel to operate the equipment to deliver like podcasts and video content that is up to our standards. And it sounds like something that should be an easy problem, but it's all these little things that really wind up being the stuff that never gets resolved. Like when you've got years, it's so easy to fall back and just be like, well, we'll just keep putting out great code. We'll just focus on the code. We're not good at creating content and communications, and it might not necessarily, it's not necessarily a lack of desire, but it's a lack of core competency in that arena. It's always a difficult balance between focusing on your core competencies and falling back on your core competencies. I don't know if that's helpful for anyone out there.
Yeah, my one thought to you, I think I'm not convinced that pitching us directly to investors is the next step. I think the next step is pitching us to app developers. Like the money's going to follow where the apps are. I mean, if we have 10 more projects that are as successful as Steam Monsters, then like people are going to be like telling us shut up and take my money. Like they're gonna be shoving money at us. Like we won't have to like drive out and pitch to them. But in order to get to that spot, we really got to get the developers here. So I think my thought would be tailor less directly to the investor of saying, hey, give us money and we'll build cool stuff, and more to the developer to say, let me help you build cool stuff because we think the money will follow that. I guess.
I actually totally agree with you. I'm thinking for Steamfest in particular that audience are going to be Steemians and Steam developers. So and I would think that if they want to have an easier time at things, they need to raise capital. But also, I think that, I mean, that's still really good feedback, because what I'm thinking is that people need to understand what makes a great application, because what the best way to get investment is to build an amazing application with a unique value proposition. But I hear what you're saying. So let's idea. So we need great apps on Steam. Are you saying that we need to recruit more developers, or help the developers who are already here understand what it takes to make a great app? Because I'll be honest with you, the vast overwhelming majority of the applications that are built on Steam, I mean, they're young, they're new, so I think it's totally fair that they're not great, but they're not great. And that begs the question to me, you know, do we focus on helping the people who are building kind of mediocre apps, make them better? Or do we focus on just bringing in more developers into the space? I mean, we're always interested in trying to bring in more developers. That's why we highlight the existing apps, or that's one of the reasons.
I guess. So we have this cycle, right? The cycle is we need users, because with users we can get sweet apps, and if we have sweet apps, we can bring in money. So we have to go, in order to get the users, I think this will get into the second half of this. Maybe we have to change up curation and give more rewards and help people sort of get some sort of financial benefit of being here. But I think a lot of what's going to drive this is that people come here for applications. And so how do you get a great application? And some of that is going to be, well, you need the users to support it. And some of that's going to be you need a developer that can make something that looks slick, is slick, has a nice value prop. Some of that's going to be you need somebody that can interface with this community and sort of like help an app get off the ground, which is super difficult to do. So I think there's a whole conversation around what I think will ultimately make the biggest difference for Steam is successful apps. And so it getting developers is part of that, getting an audience is part of that, and then helping developers that have something like it's hard. You don't get a lot of partnerships like Matt and I where we really fill a lot of the voids, where like I have 2 years of experience building up communities in Discord and on Steam, and he has 20 years of development of software tools and knows the game space really well. Like, you know, there's going to be a lot more gaps in a lot of the teams that come up. So how do we support developers to sort of like, you know, is there an incubator space? Is there a way that we can sort of share resources? Is there a way that, you know, how do we get these people in touch? And some of that there's a community building effort for that. And I don't know, you know, it kind of depends on what are the goals of Steam and how does it align and how can we involve the community. But ultimately there's this mishmash of we need people, developers that should in theory bring the money if the apps are there and they're starting to grow. So I think it's not just how do we get great developers, it's how do we get great apps built on our blockchain, and what are the pieces that we need to do to support that. And as you guys pitch and describe and figure out ways that you know, hey developer, you're left with a couple choices. Here's all these different blockchains you could develop on. Here's why you should come to Steem, and here's how we can help and support you, and here are the tools and resources. Like that, to me, I think would end up bringing the apps, which end up collecting the users, which then end up getting the money. I think that's my process cycle.
So you made a lot of great points there, and I think I have the missing piece to this puzzle. And this is a great conversation, and so here's what I think the missing piece to that puzzle is, because I think you're 100% right, and I think I'm 100% right. And a great example of this is a meeting that I had yesterday, and this is why I decided that I want to talk about your Steem app to investors. So I spoke to the CEO shortstoryproject.com yesterday. And I don't want to say too much about this, but if you go to shortstoryproject.com, anybody listening could go check out this app. He doesn't know much about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and I just told him all about why I think Steem is a great, could really enhance his application. He wouldn't have to learn about blockchain. He wouldn't have to design his own cryptocurrency. And he's super enthusiastic about bringing on Steem. And the reason why I think this is a great example, that as a partner educated me on so well, great for existing web interfaces. Steem is built for web interfaces. And there is an infinite supply of amazing web interfaces that specialize in user-generated content. There are great apps, web apps, already in existence with great developer teams already working on them who could benefit tremendously from Steem integration. The biggest thing for this guy was, yeah, but how am I going to explain this to my board? And I want to raise $5 million, and I'm about to go into venture capital meetings, and I'm going to tell people that I'm building it on Steem. And why is that going to make it sound great? Because you're going to need funding. Building an application, it has a real cost, even though Steem is freemium. People need to list about just how much can be free. You know, Steem gives you a freemium blockchain. It's not going to solve every single problem you have as a entrepreneur for you. Come on, it can only do so much. You're going to have all of these. You're going to have to fire up nodes. You're going to have all kinds of machines running that you're going to have to maintain, and so you're going to need to fund that somehow. And people neither how they're going to generate revenue to fund it, or how they're going to raise capital to do it. And you can only you're going to have expenses, and you can only pay for those expenses in two ways: revenue or fundraising. So you got to be thinking about this stuff if you're building an application. Now, so where does that leave all of the great developers who are building applications on Steem right now? Well, I think, and this is where I think the missing piece of the puzzle is, to what you were saying, which is I think we need to do a better job as a community, and Steemit Inc. has to do a better job about being a leadership in this initiative of organizing the existing community of developers and mobilizing them to interact, engage with, and help other amazing web applications out there on the internet that could benefit tremendously from Steem integration. You know, we've got a lot of developers who have passion projects on the Steem blockchain, but don't know anything about building a business. And that's great, that's fine. What we can do is we can help matchmake those great developers, entrepreneurs and businesses that already exist. I mean, I get this all the time where I've got a great business, they're thinking about integrating Steem, and who can they talk to within the ecosystem to help them fully integrate Steem? A roster of existing Steem developers that I could put those people in touch with. I mean, now what we do is we tell them go to Steem devs on Discord. And maybe that's a great way of doing it. Maybe that's the way forward, but it's not, formalized. It's not organized, and it's not optimized for really onboarding as many great existing applications as possible and setting them up for success in a way that also benefits existing developers on Steem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think that's a great approach because it solves more than one problem at the same time. They start answering the question, well, how do I show value? How do I differentiate? How can I become something special? And being a blockchain, you're seeing blockchain ICOs that suddenly get 10x the value because they slap blockchain in the name. So there's a value driver just being associated with this place. It solves our problem, the Steem ecosystem problem of we need dApps and we need people. Here's a web app. If it turns into a Steem web app, then we can hopefully start converting their 100,000, their million users into Steem users. And some of this might just be hey, Craigslist has been on my mind for a while. They started listing prices. They would allow you to check crypto is accepted. What if there's a way for us to actually help them accept crypto through Steem? If we could just get a handful of these bigger web entities to integrate a Steem wallet somehow, that could be a lot of money for them, and it could be a huge boost to the Steem ecosystem for us. So, trying to come up with what are the ways that we can integrate with an existing web application. Is this just is it just wallets and we allow crypto payments? Is it somehow you are building all of your infrastructure into the Steem blockchain? Those are two of the options that I can think of now, but how do we help them do that? How do we talk about the value drivers for doing that? Because if that starts happening, then our user base goes up, and I think investment will follow very quickly.
Absolutely. Well, I think the first step might be engaging those people in discussions. We've got a lot of community members who solicit social media influencers, and while I think those intentions are great, what we actually need more are people engaging with application developers and saying, why aren't you on Steem? We can help you. What do you need? What do you need from Steem? And that way we can figure out what to build. I mean, people are more than welcome to just start building. Steam Press is a great example of an existing web application that can add a ton of value to existing, WordPress-based websites. So that's one example of that. And I'm sure that, we've got some of them in the comments so they could weigh in on this, but I'm sure that they're engaging with entrepreneurs already fairly regularly and getting feedback with respect to how they can improve their application. But I think we need to maybe better organize on a larger scale how we can reach out to promising web applications and figure out what they need from Steem. And I think I'm going to take that idea back to my communications team and see what we can do from that end, because that should be a huge pillar of our ambitions. I think the Short Story Project is a really great example because it's not exactly true that we need users. What they do is how you define users. So their users are people who write around 3,000 words, who are authors who pay them to be featured on their site. So I think the way that it works is that you pay something like a month, and then you get access to shortstoryproject.com. You get to be, a featured author. I'm sure they have a vetting process to ensure a degree of quality. And then in exchange for that payment, they give you access to their community, which I guarantee you our community is bigger. Give you data on your readership. And so that, provides tremendous value to these high value content creators and users. And so I think that they are an especially perfect addition to the Steem blockchain, because what we need aren't just users, we need high value users. And you can define high value however you want. There's no judgment there. A user who comes in and is a great curator is a high value. A user who comes in and writes great comments, but a user who just joins and lurks, you can lurk without being a member of the Steem community. We need people who are going to come in and add value. And I think that as we're looking at applications to onboard, first of all, I just want to reiterate the point that if there's an app out there that already has an amazing web interface, that's going to be the highest value conversion for us, because they don't even have to build anything. They just have to inject some new APIs into their back end. They can do that in a week, 2 weeks tops. And then boom, they're integrated into Steem. So that's just deliver tremendous value to us. And then if in particular we focus on the web applications that just have amazing users, not huge in number, huge in value, then that would just be even better, I think.
Well, you sound fired up, and that's great. I have people that are coming to my house in about 40 minutes. So whether or not I want to end this at 1 p.m., I think it's going to get very loud in here about 40 minutes from now. So I want to switch gears and make sure that the witnesses have their chance here. Witnesses, if any of you have a burning last question for Andrarchy, I would like to start there. And otherwise, let's get on with this portion of this sort of second half of the show, where we can kind of talk through and figure out what can we do as witnesses to either align with some of that vision, align with, how do we fill the gaps, right? So anybody from the witness crew in here have something that they'd like to state or ask to Andrarchy?
Yeah, I would like to jump in. First of all, a lot of good points were made. I would like to add to that I think developers have a pretty steep learning curve in order to get started on Steem. So that needs to go down, and in order to do that, we need to create better tools for external developers and external companies to be able to connect to Steem blockchain without going through tedious process of learning about blockchain infrastructure and running their own nodes and so on. So sort of like a commercial layer on top of Steem blockchain, which would allow easier access to Steem resources for applications that just want to integrate, not to be built completely on Steem blockchain, but just to be integrated partially. But this service could be commercial, of course, paid, but it needs to exist. Right now, there's no way for new developers to start on Steem blockchain. If you want to build a serious app, you need to think about running your own infrastructure, and it gets very complicated from there. Another thing is the development grants. So one thing, if you look at the landscape of applications that have been built on Steem right now, most of them are chasing profits. And this is due to the fact that either developers need to make money somehow to sustain the operation, the business, or they need to raise funding. Since we're naturally not very good at raising funding, not many of us are entrepreneurs or have established teams or legal structure around the projects. Most of it is experimental. So funding is not on the pipeline for most of the projects, right? So these projects are chasing profits directly from Steem blockchain, and once they get to the level that they're sustainable, they stop innovating or stop caring about user experience and so on. So I think a development grant, maybe a separate organization that developers could apply with an idea, and grant would be delivered over time based on a vesting period, some sort of vesting schedule based on deliverables. That could solve the problem of developers focusing on user experience and the applications instead of chasing profits. So those 2 points.
Anybody else want to share some points or thoughts before we scoot along? All right, Andrarchy, you are certainly welcome to hang out. You are welcome to chime in and give feedback or talk about whatever as we go. But I am going to kind of open this back up to the witnesses. Let's do a short question here. Can you guys? I'd like to start with something that we should be thankful or grateful for. What should we be excited about within the Steem community? Because a bunch of the next portion is going to be focused on, what do we need to fix and what's broken and how do we make it better, and it can be a little downer. So I'd rather start with, what are some of the better signs? What's some of the healthy pieces that you'd like to see out there? Some guy, I want to start with you, and then we'll just kind of work our way down to Matt.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just give me some positive news. Give me something uplifting about the Steem ecosystem. Like what if anything gets you excited? What if anything do you think is promising about this place? Why are you a witness? Why do you spend so much time here? What is it about Steem that in our current iteration or where you think we're going that is promising and good to you?
I mean, the most promising thing is obviously that we have fast transactions without fees, the practically uncensored blogging platform. The basic concept is still pretty good. Obviously, the biggest problems is the fact that, these days it's almost impossible to actually get good rewards without using voting bots.
Okay. I guess I'm excited that it's hard for me not to talk about Steem Monsters. I'm excited. We got 100,000 games that have already been played. It's been about a week. We have nearly 600 players, which isn't a ton, but it's certainly more than a lot of the other games that are built for like the Ethereum chain or something. So I feel like we're off to a great start. We have new tools coming out. We have over 500 accounts that have been created. I feel like this is a tool that can help get more people onto the network, and that to me is good. I know it's not about Steem Monsters, but the thing that I'm excited about is that this platform seems to be excited about it, and it is already attracting people. We have 500 new accounts here. I don't know how many of those are brand new, but certainly we've had people in Discord that say, I don't care about Steem, but I want to play Steem Monsters. And so all right, this whole thing was about the back door to get people into Steem, and it seems like it's working. We got to scale it more, but it seems like it's working. Real Wolf?
Yeah, it's working. And for me, the most exciting thing, the biggest thing I'm excited about is still the fact that when you've got an idea for Steem or on Steem, it's not that difficult to implement it, or at least to bootstrap it, because there's such a big community behind it. For example, you launched Steem Monsters, and you put a lot of time and effort into it. but you already had a community, and everybody who has an idea can use this community and simply create a post, promote it, and then it's done. There doesn't need to have to be much marketing at the beginning. Maybe in the end to attract outside users, but for the first step, that's one thing that's actually one of the reasons why I'm still on Steam and trying to do so much, because I know that if I have an idea, it's not that difficult to make it a reality. And also, damn it, I think I forgot it. The communities. That's also one thing I'm very excited about, because I believe that communities will be something which will attract or which will hold more users. Because right now, I'm feeling it myself. When I go to Steemit.com, it's like a big pool, and there are all these little corners, but there's no real line where the corner starts and where it ends. And when there are like little swimming pools, some like it warm, some like it warmer, some like it colder, then those people can group together into their best climber, and then those little groups attract more users from the outside, and people know, okay, I go to Steemit or to the other app, and then I can interact with my peers.
Upheaver?
Yeah.
For me, the most exciting thing about Steam is a combination of technology and community, because this is, I think, the unique one of the unique things that Steam has, and it's working really well, that you can build something and launch it to people who are directly on chain, and they can interact with your project. I think it's fantastic. It's a really great learning ground and a testing ground for projects, and potentially it could be also a ground for growing applications as well. But Steem blockchain needs to reverse its curve of losing user base and go back into growth again.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much great stuff on Steam right now, and I guess it gets overshadowed by the problems. People like to complain more about things. And actually, on that note, I have, if anyone here is listening and, they're developers or no developers and they want to make an awesome Steam app, this is it. And I'm going to give it to you. It's free, no royalties. You can mention my name somewhere small if you want. You should make a Steam app that's specifically for people to complain on the internet. That's what the app is about. Call it, I don't know, complaints.com or something, whatever. Like,
it's decomplain. You gotta get
decomplain. I wanted to do this well before Steam. I mean, it's just like, you already complain on the internet, get rewarded for it. I just think, if you do that right with enough, cheekiness in there, I just think that would be awesome. And if I had the time, I would definitely want to do that. But to that point, there's every day I feel like I see a new thing being released on the Steem platform. So that's just, and if you look at it from a perspective of like an investor, a fund or whatever, they invest in, a whole bunch of different startups, and they know that most of them are going to fail. But if you just invest in enough, there's going to be like one or two that really take off and just make up for all the other ones. So when I see like every day a new thing being launched on the Steem platform, I think of that mindset. Like, yeah, a lot of these are probably going to fail, and that's a shame, but there's going to be one or two at some point that are just going to take off and be really big and kind of, take the Steem platform to the next level. So that's why I'm really excited about it. I mean, I hope Steem Monsters is one of them, but if it's not, that's fine. I want something, whatever it is. I want people to keep making more and more things, throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Because, some of these will start to stick, and then that'll really have the platform take off.
So let's talk a little bit about, I'm sorry for being me-centric. I want to know what's going to help us grow. How do we grow? That's the thing that I'm the most interested in. I want to see the price rise. I want to see the number of users rise. What do you guys think is the missing ingredient for growth? Let's go start with Matt, and then we can work our way back up to some guy, because I don't want to keep punishing him for having a Y at the beginning of his name.
Thanks, I appreciate that. On the other hand, there is some benefit to speaking last, I guess. But yeah, so what do we need to get more users? I mean, I think one of the big things is we have a lot of great developers who are making a lot of great apps. But actually, building stuff is kind of the easy part. It's getting people to use it, marketing it, promoting it. That's really hard. And at the very, very beginning, you could just throw something out there and say it's decentralized on a blockchain, and everyone would come to it. But we're actually past that point, and now you got to build something good, and you got to spend the time and money and know how to go out and get people in to use it. And I think that's what's really lacking on the Steem platform. I think most of the app developers don't have the resources to do that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Destiny, because Steemit Inc. does have the resources to do that. I don't know enough about Destiny to say anything about it, but if they make something really good and they put their resources to marketing, that could really help things take off. And I hope, there's been some talk this call about maybe having a fund or an incubator or whatever, but if we can also provide some of the other apps on Steam those resources to really go promote and market, then hopefully those could take off too.
Peter, what's stopping us from growing? What's our next step, or what's the limiting reagent or missing ingredient?
I think what Matt said about incubators, that's a key ingredient for having sustainable growth. Because once you have the app developed, you need to be able to sustain it for a longer time in order to build up the community, keep it alive, running, keep the updates going, adding features and so on. So I think a lot of that boils down to if you have enough funds or enough community support. Community-based incubators might work. It doesn't need to come from Steem Inc. But community can come together and create an incubator which supports development of apps on Steem blockchain. And what I mentioned before is just reducing the complexity of new devs building apps. And of course, reducing the complexity of somebody opening an account on Steem blockchain itself. I think hard fork, latest hard fork helped with that a lot. It simplified the process, but it really needs to be that simple for somebody that has never touched blockchain, doesn't know how to operate with it, just to open an account and start enjoying the applications there.
Real Wolf, what's our missing ingredient to growth? How do we expand?
Well, I personally believe we need more Steem monsters. It's funny. I never thought I would be so hooked on it, but it's amazing, and I'm very sure that if we would have more DApps like Steem monsters, then more users will come, because they attract users. But I think the problem sometimes is, or right now is, that, for example, when I joined Steemit, or when I went to Steemit, I was still some kind of a developer. I mean, I got a lot better over the time, but I was still a developer, and I was interested in maybe doing something with it. And it improved right now. I mean, when you go to the right sidebar, that you see all these different links. But I still feel that it could be a bit more into the face. For example, when a developer goes to Steemit, then he should realize that Steemit is just a very simple DApp, and there are much more complex and more crazy DApps on Steem, and maybe then those people would be attracted, or maybe also incentivized to build for it. So I think that's a multi-step process, and I also believe that what Upheaver said is true. For example, when I started out on Steem, I had no funding, so I first focused on a project which have the main focus of making money, and then, or right now, I can focus on projects which maybe have the primary reason to be improving the life of Steemits or to attract more users. But this can also be improved by, for example, Steemit Inc. Making a crowdfund or making funds for development, or maybe the community. It depends.
So right now, I think we're missing some hype. I don't think that there's. I mean, there are projects that are being built here, and they're being built by the longtime Steemians, but I feel like we've got some. We got some frustrated people around here, and we still have kind of some low morale. I don't think it's as bad as when Hardfork 20 launched, but like we kind of need some hype. I'm looking forward to having get to some good milestones for Steem Monsters, so we can go sort of broadcast. Hey, look, we're not that far of having sold $1 million worth of product. So maybe in another month or two, we can go do that post. And hopefully that's sort of an exciting, enticing thing of like, hey, come to Steem, spend a couple months here, and you have the shot of making $1 million with your sweet, sweet app. I don't know if everybody's going to be able to do that, but we want to have some of that story here of at least it's possible. You can come here and make a small fortune by building great apps. And to do that, we need some hype and we need some excitement. And I don't quite know how we get there, but that's one of my next pieces. We need to build some enthusiasm for this place that isn't here right now. We've been in this bear market for 9 months, and we've been slowing our user base. I don't know what it takes to break that, but we need some hype. Some guy? What are we missing? What's the limiting reagent for growth?
Probably better valued posts. That's pretty much it. Nobody posts on Steem because the price is low, and the price is probably low because nobody posts on Steem. It's kind of a catch-22.
Well, that gets us into a little bit of the next question here of a hot topic that we've been hearing of late is curation. Curation's been around as a hot topic for a while, but I think it got another kickstart when Kevin put together his latest post with Trafalgar to sort of butt heads and make a 3-pronged approach. And I think, I keep forgetting what the third one is, but they want 50-50 curation rewards. I don't know if they have the downvote pool or like a separate downvote pool in their proposal, but basically the community is saying, hey, we want a rework of the financial incentive around here. And, some guy, your point is rewards are low. What do you think? What if you were to start this from scratch, or like if you were king or had a magic wand, how would you swing it to go like change the system? Like what do you think the ideal system would look like?
I'm not really sure, because obviously the biggest problems relate to the voting abuse. I mean, currently the biggest concentration of Steem power is mostly in the hands of bid bots. If you don't use a bid bot, good luck getting any meaningful rewards on your posts. Similarly, I guess we got all sorts of other services like curation trails, voting bots, etc. It just generally, because of this, there's just no more natural voting, and the few natural votes that matter are very weak. I mean, I have almost $100,000 in Steem power. My vote is worth barely $3. Come on.
All right, so if I were to go wave that magic wand, I think my magic wand, as I've said this for a while, would be I'd like a downvoting pool. Right now, we're reliant on whales that don't mind spending money to flag. And the reason why it's a cost is that if you upvote something, you get a curation reward back. If you flag something, you won't get curation rewards back. So there is a cost for flagging. And I guess if I were redesigning the system, I would have two types of flags. I would have one that's just like a downvote, which is rewards disagreement that doesn't affect reputation. And I'd have a flag that does affect financials, but it also affects rep. So that I could say, like, I don't like this post, but it's not like I want to hurt this dude's rep. But, I disagree that it's actually worth the $400 that it has been bid botted to. So, I guess those would be my thoughts. I'd want a downvote option, a flag option, and I want a downvote pool where, that I'm not sure how strong that pool is. I don't think it should be 100%. I don't want an equal amount because then it's possible that nobody gets any positive rewards, and that's no bueno. I'd like to see somewhere between a 50 and 80% downvote pool where it's free for me to downvote, and possibly one other change would be I don't have like a 10 vote restriction on it. I could do just one big mega downvote so that, we could all participate in trying to break up, some of the larger whales that do abusive voting. So those would be some of my thoughts. Real Wolf?
Well, I actually really like this, what you said about separating the flags from the downvotes. I mean, the flagging for the rewards and the downvotes for the simple effect of downvoting. And I've two things which I would like to change if I had a magic wand. One would be to create a system, or maybe change the system so the manual curation or the manual engagement on Steam wouldn't be combined with the want or need from investors to earn money with their stake. I mean, for example, if I invest in Neo, then I know that I will earn gas, and I know that this is a reason why I would like to do that. And I would like to have that because I don't want anybody to be forced to be actively engaging into Steam. If he wants to do that and he makes even more money, then he would be doing passively. Then that's great. But if he doesn't and he wants to earn maybe a bit less, but fully automatically, then he should be able, or she should be able to do that. And the second thing is, which I think is a very cool thing, is to have some kind of worker proposals, which means that right now we are paying a lot of Steam to content creators, and that is great. But I also believe that if we were to reward in a similar way how Utopian.io is rewarding, but maybe not only open source projects, but projects in general. With that I mean that, for example, there could be tasks that should be done, and a proposal could be, okay, I will do this and this, and I want these and these rewards for it. And a committee or some stakeholders, I don't know how the system will work or how it would look like, but I would like to see something where people are being rewarded for contributing to Steam, and not only on an open source level, but in generally.
Upheaver, what do you think is? Oh man, I just forgot my own question. I'm having a little brain fart here.
Yeah, so curation, right?
Yeah, thank you. So how, if you wave a magic wand, how do we fix curation?
I think the answer to curation lies in the hands of user interfaces, actually, which are showing the content. And I think currently the main user interfaces through which content is consumed are not doing a very good job at sorting the content out or curating the content or helping the curate the content. So that needs to improve dramatically, right? It's mostly limited to what Steem blockchain provides natively as a way of showing the content, sorting the list by amount of money earned, etc., post payout, and it's quite difficult for somebody to change that because they need to build up the whole infrastructure from scratch, load up the whole blockchain data, reindex everything, in order to be able to have a different sorting algorithm and display posts in a different light. But I think ultimately curation, despite the whole idea about flagging, all those ideas are really good, and definitely a flagging tool could be implemented. But the main thing that needs to happen is user interfaces are ultimately in control of what gets consumed as content and what gets uploaded by real users, not by bots. So that needs to improve.
Matt, if you had a magic wand, what would you do to fix curation?
I know this is a big hot topic recently. I'm not so sure that this is A, that big a problem, or B, like something we should really be focusing that much of our attention on. I know the proposals by Trafalgar and Kevin Wong, and I guess we can try them. I just feel like it's going to end up back where we started, right? No matter what system we put in place with whatever numbers or whatever, there's still going to be some optimal way to gain the most rewards, and for the most part, the large stakeholders are just going to do that. So it's just going to be some different type of bots that work a little differently, curation bots or whatever, voting, circle jerks as they're lovingly known. So, I mean, I don't personally think we should be focusing so much of our effort to how do we tweak these numbers. And I agree with, I guess, was it Apiba or the Real Wolf said that it's, I really think it comes down to user interface things. I mean, what we need for Steem to grow, I don't think is a better curation algorithm or whatever, but just better user interfaces and marketing to attract more people, and gamification, keeping them engaged and involved, and whatever the curation curve is and all that stuff, will be fine as long as there's good user interfaces that work with that. So. I don't know, that would be my focus if I had to choose, would be stop worrying about the rewards curve and curation thing and just let's focus on making awesome new apps and marketing them appropriately, which is again why I'm excited for the possibilities of Destiny, because Steemit Inc. definitely has the resources to do that.
So I'm on a panel as the only non-dev here, and there are 4 devs with me. Can you guys talk about what's the hardest thing for you guys in order to go get your project started or going? Let's say that, hey, these apps and dApps are going to be the future of this place. We want more of them. You all have the skills necessary to build something cool. Many of you have built something cool. What's the limiting reagent? What's the hardest part of getting this done? And what would make it easier if only Steem community had this, it would have been so much freaking easier to get this launched, or would we be so much bigger already, or have made more money, or whatever your metric is. What has held you up? What has made it harder?
Better documentation and the fact that libraries keep getting abandoned. I mean, we lost Piston. Furion doesn't seem to be even maintaining Steem Python /conductor anymore. I mean, the deprecation of SteamLib.js, that's why I had to recreate SteamFeed.js. We just don't have reliable libraries, and we don't have documentation that doesn't suck.
Have you encountered many programs, especially in blockchain, that has documentation that doesn't suck? Is that a universal feature or frustration, or do you feel like that's kind of specific to the Steem ecosystem?
I think that, yes. I honestly feel like Steam was set up with so little documentation to try to prevent people being developers. I mean, it was a lot worse like a year ago. For example, just trying to set up an RPC node, there was no clear documentation for that. I mean, I still don't even think there's any clear documentation on what half the plugins do.
Is that in your eyes, is that a community challenge? Is that a Steam or the Steemit Incorporated challenge? Who's responsible here for getting the libraries up and running? Who's responsible for keeping them maintained? Who's responsible for documentation? Is that witnesses, users, Steemit, everybody?
I mean, witnesses have done a good job for some things which they shouldn't have had to. For example, Jester made one of the original guides for getting RPC nodes working. However, that should have always been something Steemit Inc. should have had accurate documentation for, instead of having to just trust random witnesses who've done it before without any clear reason for why certain things have to be done the way they are.
All right, Real World. What has been your limiting reagent? What has been hardest for you as a developer to get projects up and running, and what do you think has held back their success, or what would have made your path easier?
Well, I started programming with or on Steam last year in August, I think. And I started out with just going through old projects and trying my best, and it took quite a bit of time until I got to a point where I was, a bit more confident. So I very much agree with what some guys said, that there is not much documentation, or at least there wasn't in the past. Now it's getting better and better. But for example, there's still no documentation about how to run an RPC node, or at least and also an RPC node which is not that slow, because for example there are RPC nodes which are very fast. For example, the Marky Mark had one which was very fast, and there were some of them which were a bit slower and a bit more unstable. And I think that if we would have more documentation on that, we would have more reliable infrastructure, which is important for outside investors, outside developers trying to get a start on Steam. But also, as Exit wrote in the chat, it was sometimes a bit difficult for me also to find the right people who to work with. And sometimes this just happens randomly. For example, I found Upheaver, who was very, very good, but maybe we need better places how to find somebody. I mean, there's the Steam Devs Discord server, but it's just, I don't know, there could be some improvements.
I get a follow-up question. In the places where you've had trouble, what have you done to troubleshoot it? How have you tried to get around that?
Well, I've said that before, but I'm currently investing all my time into Steam. So if I have a problem, I will just look at it as long as possible until I find the solution, or I will ask other people who have more knowledge. For example, some guys said that a lot of libraries were abandoned, and that is true for these libraries that were a bit older. For example, Piston or Steam library, I think JS, they were all a bit older. But for example, for JavaScript, there's DSteam, which is a very, very good library, and it's up to date. I mean, it's not 100% up to date, but I think about 98% or 97%. And when I had questions, I was asking Almost Digital personally, but I tried to not to ask too many questions, because you don't want to waste anyone's time. So when I had problems, I was pretty much just trying to figure it out on my own, but it cost me a lot of time, I think, doing it all on my own.
Upheaver, what's been your biggest challenges as a developer to try to get any kind of project up and running on Steam?
Well, one is, of course, partnerships. It has been difficult to find people to cooperate with. Currently, we have really nice cooperation going with The Real Wolf on several projects, and that has been really good so far. Um, the other thing is, of course, documentation. That was lacking. Almost everything was trial and error in order to learn the basics of how Steam operates and to get to the point where I was able to build apps and fully understand the whole process from start until end. It took me a good, 2 months, I guess, to figure out how all this thing works. And most of that was spent on, trying things yourself and looking at errors and then trying to find something online or ask people questions because there was nothing written. So yeah, that was very time consuming. I think the other thing that is worth mentioning is that Steam developers have a sort of culture of keeping everything in the black box. So there's not a lot of sharing of information within the community. Like if somebody has a really fast node, they do not want to share how they did it, and just put everything on GitHub, let's say, and say, this is my configuration. Here's how you should reduce cost. Here's how you should make the disk fast enough so you don't need to spend a fortune on RAM, etc., etc. Small things like that, but this needs gradual improvement from the community as well.
Matt, what's been your hardest challenge developing projects for Steam, and what have you done to kind of overcome that?
I mean, are we just talking for software development specifically, or just generally making successful projects?
Well, I think it's more to your point of the question isn't just how do we develop. The question is how do we get a successful DApp, because that's where users and money will come from. So answer that to the best of that scope.
Yeah, and I don't think software development is the limiting factor there. Yeah, I would love better documentation and more info and all these things, but all of us in this room managed to figure it out, and there's many more that have done it also. So while there's some things that can be improved there, I don't think that's the real bottleneck. I mean, I've worked before I've been full-time on Steam. I worked at a number of different startup companies, and some were successful and some failed. And I don't see any project on Steam being any different than just a regular startup. But what is different is that most of the projects on Steam are just a couple of developers with no funding, and they just make a product, and then it kind of just dies out. And that never works. I mean, if you want to, or it doesn't never work, but it doesn't usually work. So with all the startups I've been involved with, they had adequate funding, and they had, a good, well-rounded team of people that were not just developers. So they had really good business development people. They had really good marketing people. Because just building a good product doesn't really do it, unfortunately. And a lot of Steam products, especially since they're community focused, have the chicken or the egg problem. Like, people aren't going to use it unless a lot of other people use it. So a lot of times that just takes a lot of marketing money or a lot of really, clever business development moves to kind of kickstart that cycle and become better. So that's what I think the real limiting factor is for all these awesome things on the Steem platform to really be successful, is to be funded and have good people focusing on the business development and marketing behind them.
So that's actually one of my favorite parts of SMTs. And, like when everybody just talks about them as communities and these niche things, and like I can understand why some people have poo-pooed it and said, it's whatever. If this was 2015, that would have been a big deal. But to me, one of the central things you're talking about is having adequate funding. You have to have a mechanism by which you can pool capital. And right now, I don't know how I'd do that on Steam. I mean, we have a successful business. How would we pool capital here? I either have to go public on a stock exchange, I have to go make a token on BitShares, or maybe I go do like an ERC20, and all of those feel gross and wrong in a number of ways. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about for SMTs, because I feel like we can finally solve. You have a cool team, you have a cool project, but you have no money. How do we fix that? Do you see SMTs as a way to sort of like solve that funding problem?
Well, I mean, it can do, similar to what an ERC20 token can, is, it can be a way to raise money. But like Justa just said, legally that doesn't really work, especially in the United States. I've personally, without saying too much, been involved in getting a Reg D token approved in the US, and it's a process that I don't think most people are going to go through. So, I mean, raising money is always difficult. But I think, actually, I mean, in the blockchain space right now, even without a token or doing an ICO, there's pretty big appetite from private investors to invest, just like at a traditional startup, and that would be in return for equity. So again, like if you're just a developer and you've never done any of that before, yeah, you're probably not going to be able to be successful. But again, if you have someone that's good business development on your team who has been involved in startups and been involved in fundraising, and you have a cool idea that's, in the hip new blockchain crypto space, I bet you can go out and get funding pretty easily at this stage. So that's what I'd like to see more of, good business development folks involved in some of the Steem projects.
All right, we have maybe 10 minutes left here. I guess I'll share. So I'm on the opposite side of this, of more like the business and community guy that have been trying to go find developers. And at various times, I haven't had any money to pay, so that's always been a challenge. What's the other piece? I mean, the other piece is trying to find, like, any developer on Steem always seems like they have like a million other things that they could be doing. So it's hard to like lock people into place to go work on projects. So I've had developers come and go, have helped build some things that get used, and then people vanish. I mean, I think setting up partnerships between developers and those business people where both folks walk away feeling like they're getting the better end of the deal is critical and hard to accomplish. So, all right. So we have maybe 9 minutes left, and then we're going to have the Meadows and Makers show with Jack Dubb and Making Stuff. Yeah, that trust is in there too. Skills, time, trust. Okay, so let's see. I don't know if it's a little bit too early to give some closing thoughts. Maybe I should do one more question here. So we have curation. I guess we just released 20.6. Is there anything exciting about 20.6 that any of you would like to mention? I guess I'll make this one sort of a little bit more open-ended. Don't feel like you need to be on the spot for this, but anything is part of the latest revision to the code that you think is a cool tweak or is going to help us?
I guess that's a no.
Yeah.
I think the costs of custom JSONs were reduced, which is, I think, pretty good for Steem monsters, right?
Well, I actually think they went up.
Really?
Well, yeah. Let me go. I like pimping this one website, BeanPie or BeanPie. I guess it's BeanPie.com. There's the BeanPie cost or resource costs. The last time that I checked this, it looked like we had a little spike going up in terms of what the costs were. So let me go check this again. Yeah, it seems like comments went up a little bit, votes went up a little bit. The bytes went up by a lot for transfers, it looks like. So maybe it's possible that his code is off, but it looks like the change actually increased cost for some of these things.
Okay, that's interesting.
I do think I do think it was the point to do that. I don't think it actually did it though. Although maybe some of these things take time, right? Because we have to go equilibrate and see. All right, you got a momentary spike. Does that mean that it's a long-term spike, or do these costs start going down again? We'll find out.
Yeah, I think we need around a week for the cost to stabilize again. I'm not sure if it's instant. I guess it takes some time.
Yeah. All right, guys. Why don't you give some final thoughts? You can each take about a minute here, and I try to keep this as open-ended as possible. What are you looking forward to? What do you need to do? What do you want to promote? You get a minute. Say whatever you'd like for the last minute here. Let's start with Matt. Some guys. Oh, did my mic die?
The mic just died.
Damn it!
For like 10 seconds.
All right, so
You're back.
I'm back. I guess we're at the last 5 minutes here. We can each take a minute. Share whatever you'd like. I try to keep this pretty open-ended. You can talk about what is exciting. What do you want to promote? What do you want people to know? What do you want them to walk away from? Just give me some final thoughts on. You get 1 minute. You get some closing statement. Some guy?
Yeah, so I don't really have much to say, but maybe for the next show you should see if you can get Holger80 on here, the guy who developed BeamPi. That's pretty much the successor to Piston and has been a lifesaver.
Yeah, I keep trying to speak with him and trying to get him on air to go either talk about BeamPi or talk about... He's been doing some really nice reviews of the hard fork changes, so I've been excited about that. What do I want to share? I mean, I just keep an eye on Steem Monsters. I mean, I think that we got some daily rewards going. We're gonna get tournaments going soon, and between those things, I think we have to find other ways for people to earn money here than simply posting. Posting is cool, but there's too many people that are left out. And so we have to figure out alternative ways that you can earn. And this feels like a really cool one. And hopefully we can add some value to the chain that way. So please keep an eye out. And if you think it's a cool project, then please go buy some cards because you'll support us. And in turn, we'll help spread the Steem ecosystem around. Real Wolf?
Yeah. Well, personally, I'm very excited about the coming month because in the first quarter of 2019, SMTs should be released. I mean, we will see if the timeline is being achieved, but at least that's a goal. But until then, I think we have got some month where we can maybe try out a few new changes regarding curation and downvotes, and I think this will be very exciting, and everybody can take part in writing their ideas, their thoughts, and making sure that we are ready for the SMTs.
Pever?
I would like to mention our project that we launched recently, which is called Steem Anchor. So that is Steem and Steem dollars on Stellar Decentralized Exchange. And we're currently running a competition with support of Matt as well, which we're giving where we're giving 200 Steem for top traders who help Steem and Steem dollar to be noticed on Steem Stellar decentralized exchanges. And we hope to create some volume and some interest from external investors, so they start buying Steem. So we invite everyone to check it out, steemanchor.com, and check out our blog post as well, where you can get details about the competition and how to enter.
Matt?
Yeah, I just want to echo the Steem Anchor thing, because I think it would be great, to just make a little splash there and get noticed. And it's an awesome product, and it's just another great way for, to get Steem on another exchange and get people looking at it. But overall, I want to end the way I started, which is that I'm just super excited seeing how almost every day there's some type of new project or site or service being launched on the Steem platform. And like I said, the law of large numbers. It's just a matter of time before, you know, one or a few of those has the right ingredients to really take off, and then, you know, it's that huge growth curve can happen. And I think that'll happen at some point in the near future for Steem, and I'm, you know, happy to be a part of it.
Well, you guys have been listening to the Steem Witness Forum here on msp-waves radio. I'm your host, Agrode. Happy to go bring this conversation to you all. We have about 2 minutes left here. Following this conversation, I will make the live recording available through a post, so everybody can go hear this and hear the latest updates from Steemit Incorporated. Hear from some of your top witnesses here. We're going to have another show following us between Making Stuff and Jack Dub, the Meadows and Makers show. And I just want to say thanks. You know, I'm grateful that there's so many lovely people in the audience, so many fantastic Steemians that make this place their home. And you know, I every now and then I get a little frustrated around here, but I am super bullish on this place. I mean, Steem is an amazing community, an amazing program, and as more people keep building, I think we have a promising future ahead. So thanks for coming, thanks for checking us out, and up next we're gonna have Meadows and Makers and more coming to you live on MSP Waves. This is Agrode signing off.